Most people have heard of a few spiritual gifts, maybe prophecy, maybe healing. But there are 7 gifts described in Scripture that get far less attention, and understanding them can completely change how you see your own life and the people around you. By the end of this video, you'll know what each one looks like in real life, where it comes from, and how to actually recognize it. Not through guesswork, but through what these gifts are grounded in. One more thing before we start. The 7th gift on this list is the one people notice least in themselves, and it tends to explain the most. Keep that in mind as we go. Let's go through all 7. 1. Discernment of Spirits. This is the ability to recognize what's spiritually true beneath the surface, sensing sincerity, deception, or spiritual influence in a situation that isn't obvious on the surface. It shows up as a strong, often accurate intuition about people or environments. It's rooted in 1 Corinthians 12:10, which lists it plainly: to another discerning of spirits. It's worth being precise about what this is and isn't. Discernment is specific. It shows up in particular moments, tied to particular situations. It's different from general suspicion or anxiety about people, which is a different pattern entirely. The gift is accurate perception, not a constant undercurrent of distrust. A biblical example of this in action is Paul in Acts 16, where he recognizes a spirit operating in a servant girl that everyone else had simply accepted as fortune-telling. He named what was actually happening when nobody else did. That's the pattern this gift follows, seeing past what's socially accepted at face value. 2. Gift of dreams and visions. Throughout Scripture, dreams and visions are a consistent way God communicates. Joseph interpreting dreams in Genesis, Daniel's visions, Peter's rooftop vision in Acts 10. This isn't a minor or fringe theme. It runs through the entire biblical narrative. Acts 2:17 states it directly. Your young men shall see visions. Your old men shall dream dreams. People with this gift often have vivid, memorable dreams that carry meaning or insight beyond the ordinary. That said, discernment matters here too. Not every vivid dream is significant. Most dreams are the mind processing daily life, and separating the meaningful ones from the ordinary is part of stewarding this gift responsibly. Joseph's story in Genesis 37 and 41 is really the clearest picture of this gift in the whole Bible. Dreams that meant nothing to the people around him until years later, when they turned out to describe exactly what was coming. That gap between the dream and its meaning becoming clear is common with this gift. It's rarely instant. 3. Word of knowledge. This is a sudden insight or understanding about a person or situation that wasn't learned through any normal means. Not a guess, but specific information landing without an obvious source. It's referenced in 1 Corinthians 12:8, which calls it the word of knowledge. Scripture is consistent that its purpose is to help or guide someone else, never for personal gain, prediction as entertainment, or asserting spiritual superiority. If this shows up in someone's life, the test isn't accuracy for its own sake. It's whether it served the person it was meant for. Jesus does this with the woman at the well in John 4, telling her details about her own life that he had no ordinary way of knowing. Notice what it's used for in that account, though. Not to embarrass her or prove a point, but to open a conversation that changed her life. That's the pattern worth paying attention to. The knowledge always points toward helping, never toward performance. This is a good point to pause and take stock. If 2 or 3 of these are already sounding familiar, that's worth sitting with. The next few are more visible, and they tend to clarify things further. 4. Gift of healing. This is the capacity to be used as part of someone's physical or emotional healing, through prayer, presence, or care that leads to a real, tangible change in another person. Scripture describes this as flowing through a person, rather than being an inherent power someone possesses. 1 Corinthians 12:9 puts it this way: to another, the gifts of healing by the same Spirit. That wording matters. It's framed consistently as something moving through a person, not something owned or generated by them. Peter and John at the temple gate in Acts 3 is a good picture of this. And worth noting, Peter's first words afterward are basically, "Don't look at us like we did this ourselves." That instinct to redirect attention away from the person and toward the source is actually part of the gift functioning correctly, not just modesty. 5. Working of miracles. Described in 1 Corinthians 12:10. To another, the working of miracles. This refers to extraordinary provision or circumstances that go beyond what could reasonably be expected. Timing too precise to be coincidence, doors opening that had no reason to, provision arriving at the exact right moment. Scripture is clear that this is attributed to God working through someone, not evidence of that person's own spiritual level. That framing is important, because without it, this is exactly the kind of gift that gets distorted into ego, status, or manipulation of others. Elijah calling down fire in 1 Kings 18 is one of the more dramatic examples, but it's worth noticing the context. It happens in front of people who needed convincing, not as a private display for Elijah's own benefit. The purpose was always outward, toward the people watching, not inward toward Elijah's own reputation. 6. Gift of faith. This isn't everyday belief. Every person of faith has some baseline measure of that. This is a steady, unshakable trust that holds during genuine hardship, not just when things are easy. It's named in that same list, 1 Corinthians 12:9. To another faith by the same Spirit. People with this gift are often the calm, grounding presence in a crisis, not because they misunderstand how serious a situation is, but because something in them remains steady, regardless of the circumstances. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego in Daniel 3 are a striking picture of this. Their actual words before being thrown into the furnace are that God is able to save them, but even if He doesn't, they still won't waver. That's the distinction that separates this gift from simple optimism. The steadiness holds even when the outcome isn't guaranteed. Before the 7th gift, it's worth naming something that applies to all of these, not just one. None of these gifts make a person more spiritual or more important than anyone else. That point is going to matter a lot in a minute, because it's actually the whole reason these gifts exist in the first place. 7. Bearing/intercession. This is the capacity to carry deep empathy for others, feeling compelled to pray for people, even strangers, and carrying real emotional weight for situations that aren't one's own. Galatians 6:2 captures it directly. Bear ye one another's burdens. This is one of the quieter gifts, often invisible to everyone, except the person carrying it. There's no external marker for it, no visible outcome the way there is with healing or miracles. It shows up as an internal weight, absorbing what others are going through, sometimes without a clear reason why. And it's easy to mistake for simply being too sensitive when it's really something specific being carried. Nehemiah is a strong example. Before he does anything practical about Jerusalem's walls, Nehemiah 1 shows him weeping and fasting for days over a situation that technically wasn't happening to him directly. That weight he carried is what eventually moved him into action. The gift often works exactly that way. The burden comes first, and it's what leads to whatever comes next. Here's what ties all 7 of these together, and it's the most important verse in the whole video. 1 Corinthians 12:7. The manifestation of the Spirit is given to every man to profit withal. Scripture is consistent that these gifts aren't measures of how chosen someone is over anyone else. They're given for the purpose of serving others, not for personal identity, status, or standing apart from other people. Any framing that turns a spiritual gift into a marker of superiority is missing the actual point of why these are described in Scripture at all. So if you recognize yourself in 1 or 2 of these, the healthiest next step isn't just recognizing it, it's asking how that gift can be used to help the people around you. That's really the whole purpose behind any of them. If this helped you understand something about yourself or someone you know, let me know in the comments which one stood out to you most.